Across the Spider-Verse is an absolutely amazing film. It's one of the best sequels of all time, probably the best animated movie of all time, and it's become my favorite movie of all time, beating my longtime favorite, The Matrix, from all the way back in 1999.
It's a very exciting time.
Man, this movie is just incredible. I'm sure you've heard all the hype. I'm sure you've heard other reviews talking about how great it is, how it's groundbreaking, even more so than the first one. So in this, we won't be talking about so much just about like how great it is. We're going to be diving deeper into the themes and the allegory and the meaning behind what's going on in the story. Sort of like we do with the philosophy of Naruto videos on the channel, but now we're going to be doing something like that with Across the Spider-Verse. So I can't wait to get into it with you guys. And yeah, namaste, my fellow dreamers. Good to see you. Okay, so I started writing a script for this, but it just kept getting longer and longer, page after page after page. I realized that this was going to be way too long to talk about in one single video, and also realized that I don't want to do just like a traditional review because I'm not a critic, but I do like talking about like the deeper meaning behind things. So in this video, we're going to focus mostly on Gwen. She works to bookend this film and also helps to make it a complete movie, and we'll talk about that too, because that's one of the few criticisms people have levied against this movie is the ending. But we're going to talk about how this is actually a complete movie. And a lot of it has to do with Gwen, but also Miles, because we'll talk about him, of course, since a lot of Gwen's story has to do with Miles as a character too. But I would say in this movie, Gwen has become like the co-lead and is about as important a character as Miles Morales in this film in particular. The overarching Spider-Verse story it still belongs to Miles. Like, his arc is not complete yet, but he does complete his own character arc in this movie as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Across the Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse, because we'll be talking about both of those and we'll talk about the ending and everything. Because we have to get into spoilers if we want to get like deeper into the meaning and the allegories that are in this movie. So the movie opens up with Gwen, just like in Into the Spider-Verse. It's not Miles that starts off the movie, but another spider person who opens the film and talks about like what's going on. I find it very interesting that even though throughout this movie Miles is talking about how other people are trying to tell him what his story is, in this movie it's actually narrated by Gwen and not by him. She's telling the story. That's why at the very beginning we get basically a whole summary of what's going on in the visuals. If we like, once you look at it the second time, you see like they showed a lot of things that happen in the movie. So it's very interesting that even though this is Miles wants to tell his own story, Gwen is actually the one telling the story in this one. So I wonder how it will be in the third movie. I think it'll be more Miles telling his own story. So even in the first movie, when we got a little bit of Gwen's backstory and we got to see her world, like the pastel world with the watercolors, I couldn't wait to spend more time in that world. And we got to spend a lot of it at the beginning of this movie. It's about 15 to 20 minutes prologue before the title card even comes up, where we just spend time in Gwen's world and we learn more about her backstory and how tragic it is and how meaningful it is, man. Like, the emotional stakes in this movie are even more important than like the big multiversal stakes, which is why this is such a good movie. It works on so many different levels, works for kids to just like be entertained and see a bunch of spectacle, or even adults, but also it has all kinds of deeper layers and meaning to it. First, let's talk about the artwork in Gwen's universe, because it is so beautiful, and it's all about her emotional state. Like the different tones, the different hues that are used have to do with how she feels and how it's all her own feeling universe. So like when we first see her, she's always like in cool colors like blues and greens, and the world around her seems dark. And when she has a good moment with her father at one point and gives him a hug, that whole area lights up in warm colors, and you can just feel how she's feeling just by the art style. That's another thing that's so amazing. Like, the art is amazing in this, and everybody will tell you that, but it's not just art for the sake of art or animation for the sake of good animation. It all has purpose. Every little detail, every choice, every artistic choice, it's all there for meaning. And that's what makes this movie so incredible. So we find out more about Gwen Stacy's Peter Parker in her universe and how he became the Lizard, and they had a battle at their school dance, and Gwen ended up being the reason why Peter died as the lizard, because she was fighting him and she didn't realize it was him. So that's already tragic enough that she killed her best friend in her universe, or at least is like partially responsible for his death, like because he basically did it to himself by becoming the lizard. And then her father sees Spider-Woman over Peter Parker's dead body and assumes that she's the one who killed him. And so he goes on a hunt for Spider-Woman in their universe. A lot of this story has to do with the relationship between teenagers and parents. That also is reflected in Miles' story as well. And Gwen's relationship with her father is a good mirror to Miles' relationship with his father. So we see in that prologue that Gwen quits her band, and she says like she never found the right band to be a part of, and she says this at the beginning. And man, if you listen to the music in this movie, it's so incredible. I don't know how much of it I'll be able to include in this video, but like the music that plays at the very beginning of the movie is the same music that plays at the very end, but it's just a little bit modified for the ending. Like we get to hear her drum solo, and we hear like Miles' theme and the Prowler theme. So Gwen as Spider-Woman finds herself at odds with Captain Stacy, her father, and he's trying to capture her for we don't know exactly how long, but it's something that's been going on as she's been Spider-Woman in her universe. And eventually, when Miguel O'Hara and Jessica Drew come into her universe to catch the Vulture, she ends up being weak from that fight, and Gwen Stacy is there to arrest her, and she can't really do anything. She's out of web fluid, and so she ends up having to reveal her identity so that her father will see who it is. And even after she reveals herself to her dad, her dad still tries to arrest her. It's one of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever seen, especially because the backgrounds, the colors that they use to express Gwen's emotions are so incredible. Sometimes the art will run like it's like her tears are running down you see the watercolors running down the page. It's so beautiful. So when Gwen Stacy still tries to arrest Spider-Woman Gwen, when he finds out who she is, like you can see just how badly this affects her. And we have like the red colors behind him because like for like danger or a threat, or like he feels threatened by her. And then like Gwen's world is just collapsing. You can see the colors behind her. It's just heart-wrenching. And there's been a lot of talk online about Gwen Stacy, like her gender identity, like if she's trans or not. Like we can see she has a Protect Trans Kids flag in her room, and even her dad has a trans flag on his uniform. And her story is easily an allegory for like someone in the LGBTQIA community coming out to their parents. And even Miles' story is, even in the first movie, I would say, but Gwen's especially, and I think it is even more so about like a trans person coming out to their parents, because when Gwen's whole language that she uses, like, why are you so scared of me? And like the father won't accept her. Like there's been debate about like whether Gwen in the movie is actually trans or not, and I don't think that really matters, because like all great art, it's open for interpretation. They're not going to tell you like one way or the other. But if you feel a connection to her and you feel like she is, then she can be, and if you don't, then she doesn't have to be. So it's up to the viewer, because art is subjective. So you can put in place whatever you like. But the allegory is definitely there, no matter what you believe about her actual character. This is definitely an allegory for like coming out to your parents. And even Miles is like that. And even in the first movie, Miles' dad, Jefferson Davis, he hates Spider-Man, and all Miles wants to do is be a quote unquote normal kid. And he even asked his dad at one point, Dad, like once he realizes he's definitely Spider-Man, he says, Dad, do you really hate Spider-Man? And his dad is like, you know how he's like, yeah, you know, I hate him. And even the response of the mom is kind of like the way someone would respond to someone being homophobic or something, and they're like, you can't say that, like, and then the dad's like, man, you know how I feel about Spider-Man. And it's like a nice little joke, but when you look at it deeper, it's about Miles fearing that his parents won't accept him if they find out that he's Spider-Man, which is the same kind of feeling that a kid could have when they are trying to come out to their parents for the first time. So yeah, even with Miles, that allegory is there, and even in this movie, when when Miles had the little fantasy about telling his parents, and they said, "Oh, it's okay, we love and accept you for who you are," and then but then they throw in like the little joke, like, "And it's okay that you've been lying to us for whatever," but like because Miles and Gwen are both supposed to be going through the same kind of thing. Where they are afraid to reveal themselves, their true selves, to their parents because of fear of being rejected or not being accepted or not being loved as much. So like Miles is afraid that his parents won't love him as much. And in this movie, it doesn't make as much sense because like now he's working with Spider-Man, or his dad is working with Spider-Man. That's why they do the part where they say, even though you've been lying to us for the last year, but in the original movie, it was more like that allegory, and it's still going on because that's why they are parallels to each other. And especially they are parallels in like that Miles has a loving family and an accepting family. His dad has learned to accept Spider-Man even though he didn't like him before. So Miles is more just in his head, like he doesn't think his parents will accept him, but his parents actually probably would accept him and they would still love him just the same. But Gwen is in a space where she assumed that her dad would accept her once she revealed herself, but then he didn't. So that's why she tells Miles not to tell his parents the truth about his identity. But yeah, I just love the deeper meaning behind it. And also, yeah, I wanted to make sure I got this video out before June ended. So yeah, happy Pride Month to everybody. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I definitely got this one out before June was over. So yeah, in the first movie we see that, and in this one even more so, we see that Gwen loses her only friend, her best friend, Peter Parker, and so she has a hard time accepting other people in her life, getting close to her. So she doesn't have any friends until she meets Miles in the first movie, and that becomes her like first friend since Peter. And then like in this one, she quits her band because she's still not ready to like really be close to people. And then we see her reconnect with Miles, which is like a way of her starting to open up again to the idea of having people be close to her, especially after she got rejected by her father too. And that makes her that was like the one person that she still had, like the one steady person in her life that was someone who she could always rely on, but now she doesn't have that relationship anymore. So she was closed off, but then Miles again is opening her up again. And we'll talk more about her relationship with Miles in the next one, because I realized like in the movie that I'm gonna have to split this video into 2 parts because it's so long. Yeah, so because of her relationship with Miles, she ends up being able to reconcile with her father and open up to her father, because she realizes like that she can't lose anyone else, because she feels like she lost Miles by the end of the movie, and we'll talk about that in the next one. And she can't lose her dad too. And when she finally opens up to her dad fully and tells him how she's been trying to wear the mask the way her dad would want her to, and then her dad ends up quitting the force because of her speech, Gwen is just almost about to fall apart, like if she can't reconcile with her father. And that's another part where the paint runs, and again, I didn't notice it the first time, but in the theater the second time I watched it, that part made me cry, man. And almost it made me break my no crying in public rule, because it was just so powerful, and the art is so good, and the backgrounds behind them when they are reconciling and coming back to each other, it's the most beautiful depiction of like emotions of feeling acceptance and love that I've ever seen before. Because it's not like what you would expect. When you think about love, you might just think about like some warm colors or something, but this, I don't even know how to explain what's happening, but it's just so beautiful and so unique. And then just the look on Gwen's face when she feels completely accepted by her father, it's so like heart-wrenching but beautiful, and you can just feel the like sense of relief that she has, and the release of all of her anxieties, like when her dad hands her the gift, and not because of the gift, but she's just like thinking about like how her and her dad are okay now. And it's so moving and so touching. Like if you pause on this frame and see her face, it's just like I know that feeling of just like, oh, I'm so glad that I was able to reconcile with this person. But yeah, the reconciliation is so beautiful. And by the end of the movie, we see that she forms her own band. So like that's how this movie is bookended, with Gwen quitting the band and not accepting friendship or camaraderie or like closeness to other people. And then by the end, she forms her own band because of how Miles changed her throughout the course of the movie, and now she's ready to be like have friendships, and especially with Miles like going to go get him, and now she's ready to have friends again and like be a part of, like, not only is she a part of a band, but she formed her own band. So she was like proactively going to seek out other people. So that's Gwen's like internal struggle and her personal arc throughout the story, like what she's going through. But let's talk about how she relates to Miles also, like how Miles and Gwen's story unfolds, because I think this is really interesting, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but like there's a lot of stuff going on with But yeah, this video ended up getting really long, so I'm gonna have to split it into two parts. So this will be part 1 of 2, but the second one it's a big part of this because Gwen's relationship with Miles is what makes her be able to come to this point in the first place. But Gwen makes the story a complete story because her character has a complete arc, and so does Miles, and we'll talk about that in the next one. And I'll try to release these like at the same time, or like maybe a day apart. So it'll be ready. It won't be March 29th, but that's still not bad if they actually end up sticking to that release date. So this is the end of part 1 of 2. I'll see you guys in the next one. Everybody stay safe out there. Peace and love.